Next guest says that Hillary Clinton is much weaker than we ever thought. Want to bring in Republican strategist and Go Big Media founder and CEO Phillip Stutts. Phillip, good to see you.
Morning.
Thanks so much for joining us. Give us your characterization of the field right now. I mean, hearing Hillary Clinton just, so aggressive. We won in Iowa. It seems like, wow, really? Because it was so
she is much weaker in the general election. She's going to get wiped out in New Hampshire. Bernie Sanders is way ahead of her. But after that, she's got a pretty good path going forward. I don't think she can lose. But in the general election, depending on who we nominate on the Republican side, she has a really hard road ahead. I mean, she's not a very viable candidate. People have made up their minds on her.
Yeah, it really does feel like people have made up their minds in terms of, well, her loyal support is still there.
Yeah, I mean, she always has had her loyal supporters, but what you're seeing come out from the electorate is that they don't want another Bush or Clinton. And I think one of the things to look back on is look at 2008. I mean, she went against Barack Obama, and people didn't think he stood a chance. He was a junior senator with not a real track record, right? And she had a hard time with him. So this is just resonating. She hasn't done very well in the campaigns, especially in the primaries.
The Zika virus is obviously contagious, but charm isn't contagious because her husband over there can't give her any type of charm, which I don't understand. My question, though, is if she gets indicted, do you think she just pays the fine the way General Petraeus did and stays in the campaign? Is she that shameless to do something like that?
It could go to a convention, a brokered convention. Somebody may get in like a Bloomberg at that point. I don't know. I find it interesting just looking back on Iowa. You had 75% of the mostly white evangelical vote voted against Trump. Right? 60% of that same vote voted for a minority Republican. 43% of the Democrats in Iowa say they're socialist, but 100% voted for a candidate that was old and white.
We laugh about, as the Wall Street Journal said, Bernie Sanders warmed over socialism and the idiocy of some of his supporters, but he is turning into a formidable candidate, raising questions about those coin tosses in Iowa, number one, and he's willing to run negative ads on her, which the first negative ad ran in Iowa and highlighting her ties to Wall Street, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
What about the Republican side?
Sure. I think there are three lanes. There's the Trump lane, there's the Cruz lane, and then there's the establishment lane. And Anthony and I were just talking. I mean, I think, Rubio has the most room to grow. And what's even most interesting of all is 4 years ago in New Hampshire, 62% of the primary voters didn't decide until Election Day. And don't forget, independents can cross over in New Hampshire. So this is a wild, wild, wild race to go.
Still wide open.
Anybody have a path to the presidency other than those three?
It's really hard. Christie has a small window.
Okay, tell us why.
Polling says in New Hampshire he's done really well. He's done over 130 events in New Hampshire, and he's gotten to know the locals. They like him. They see him as an alternative to Trump, who kind of speaks his mind and is, has a more credible path.
But isn't it New Hampshire a bust for him? I mean, he's pretty much staged his entire campaign on New Hampshire.
It's a bust for Christie. It's a bust for everybody.
Let's talk about that. Bush comes in third or fourth in New Hampshire. He stays in the race and goes to South Carolina?
Well, they have a great organization in South Carolina, and they've invested a ton of money. The problem is if he gets wiped clean in New Hampshire, I just think for the good of the family, he'll drop out.
Well,
after New Hampshire.
After New Hampshire.
Trump still got a 22-point lead in New Hampshire over the closest competitor, which is Cruz. But it's tight. Cruz, Kasich, Bush, and Rubio. It's a pretty tight second-place race. But the Wall Street Journal raises something really interesting, that Trump he's only airing about $1 million in TV ads in New Hampshire right now. He doesn't have the Get Out the Vote campaign, less critical in New Hampshire, but he needs to spend more of his money.
Yeah, and they criticized his ground game in Iowa.
They did not. I mean, Cruz had the analytics and the ground game to win Iowa, and that's exactly why. If Trump would have done that, he would have won. He would have won.
Wow.
He had no analytics. He had no ground game.
And he didn't go to that debate, and I think Iowans got upset.
The polling...
He kind of admitted that last night.
The media polling stopped on Friday. The internal polling of the campaigns I talked to said that the debate hurt him not showing up.
I thought he gave
the
a
rest of the weekend.
masterful concession speech, by the way. I mean, if you got to give the guy credit, masterful.
And then he came out yesterday and started.
Lepers don't change their spots, but I thought that this speech was masterful. Get in and out, make a concession, No grandstanding, no Howard Dean screaming. I thought it was great.
And then we didn't hear from him all day on Twitter yesterday, and people were wondering, what is he thinking about this, that he lost Iowa?
Well, and the first thing he said, he started whining about it, that the media didn't give me enough coverage over my long shot, great finish in Iowa fairly. I brought in record voters, got the second highest vote total in history. Well, you know what? He was on the campaign trail, and in every stop, the first thing he would talk about was the polls. I'm #1 in the polls, and when he would be second in a poll, he would criticize the organization that did the poll as if it was wrong. So when you crow about being #1 and then you come in second. What?
Did you see the loser.com URL? Just punch it up on your phone. There's a picture of Donald.
And don't forget, he
God.
talks about how he's a self-funder, but he's actually taken about $5 million in small donations that he spent other people's money. And the other thing is, people that have all this money, they don't like to spend it without large odds of winning.
Yeah,
and
he spent $12 million.
He has not spent a lot of his own
But
money.
is he actually gone? I mean, when you look at his situation financially, he's got lots of billions in assets, but not liquidity.
Right.
So, you know, if he does lose in other races, he's going to have to pony up, and I don't know that he's got that
He
liquidity.
needs to pony up now because
He
it's
needs a
coming.
line of credit. I'm sure he has several, right?
He's a fighter that has now taken a shot to the ribs, okay? And he's back now, and Mick is going to cut him a little bit. He's going to get back out there. If he loses in New Hampshire, I think it's game over for him. That's what I really think.
Oh, really? If he loses? But why would he lose in New Hampshire? I thought he was way up.
Well,
because crazy things happen in New Hampshire.
Again, 4 years ago, 62% of the
Make
primary
decisions.
voting Republicans made their decision on Election Day.
That's
Wow.
why.
What do you think about Rubio's emergence here? You think this is? Would you buy into it?
Yeah, I always look at how the internal polling, because I've talked to some of the Rubio campaign folks, and I've talked to some of the Cruz campaign folks, and they go, Rubio has the largest path of gaining new voters, winning. He's got the highest favorabilities of any Republican candidate right now, even though he sustained millions in ads by Jeb Bush's super PAC against him.
To the money question, Trump's raised, he has spent $12 million of his own money, collected $6 million.
Right.
And then compare how much cash he had on hand. Cruz has $19 million in cash on hand. Trump has $7 million in his campaign account.
Yeah, my point is he just doesn't have liquidity.
Right.
A lot of assets, but he's going to have to use his own cash if we see more.
And a lot of it.
And spend now.
And have a 25% chance of winning.
Yeah.
People with money don't like those odds.
Exactly. Philip, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks so much. Phillip Stutts there.